Today, we're going to get inside the mind of Ray Dalio. He's a founder of the world's largest hedge fund, and, well, he's sounding a pretty serious alarm about the global economy. So we're going to break down his guide for how you, yes, you, can navigate what he sees coming next. It really all kicks off with this bombshell statement. I mean, when a guy who manages hundreds of billions of dollars says cash is trash, you kind of have to sit up and listen, right? It's a provocative line for sure, and it is absolutely designed to be a wake-up call.
And that really gets to the heart of it. So that's our central question here. We're going to unpack exactly why he's so worried about just holding cash, and, probably more importantly, what he thinks you can actually do about it to protect yourself.
Now, according to Dalio, this isn't just your average up and down market cycle. Nope. He sees this rare convergence of three massive forces, a combination that he says he has not seen in his entire lifetime. So, what are these three big alarms? Well, number one, governments are creating and borrowing money on a scale that is just mind-boggling. Number two, you've got these deep, really intense political divisions inside of countries. And number three, the rise of a global power, China, that's strong enough to challenge the United States. Dalio warns that these three things together, they create a perfect storm. So let's really zero in on that first alarm, all that money creation. This is the bedrock of the whole cash is trash argument. And it all boils down to this: silent thief that's been secretly eating away at your savings. And the key idea you have to get your head around is something called purchasing power. See, it's not about how many dollars you have in the bank, it's about what those dollars can actually buy. When governments print trillions of new dollars out of thin air, they're diluting the value of every single dollar that's already out there. The end result? Your money buys less and less. You know, Dalio has a really great analogy for this. He says inflation is like a hidden tax. Think about it. If the government suddenly hiked your income taxes, you'd probably be furious, right? But when they just print more money, your purchasing power drops, and it doesn't feel as direct. But the result is exactly the same. You have less real wealth. And this is just a brutal illustration of the danger. Dalio pointed to a recent period where so-called safe investments, like bonds, lost about 10% of their value. But when you add 8% inflation on top of that, investors were suddenly left with 18% less purchasing power. You are actually losing a huge chunk of your money by trying to play it safe. Okay, so you're hearing about all these huge global problems. What can one person actually do? Well, Dalio has a really clear two-step survival plan. Let's dig into how you can build a personal defense against all this. He thinks about it like a pyramid. The base, the absolute first thing you have to do is build security. Before you even think about investing, Dalio is adamant. You need an emergency fund. Only after that secure base is built do you move up to step two, which is diversifying your other assets to protect and grow your wealth. And you know what? This advice comes from a really tough personal lesson. Dalio himself once went basically broke. He had to borrow $4,000 from his dad just to cover family bills. That experience taught him, firsthand, the critical importance of knowing your runway, how long you can actually survive if you have zero income. Okay, so once your safety net is solid, this is what step two looks like. It's the classic advice we've all heard. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Dalio is a huge believer in a balanced mix of different kinds of assets, things like stocks, bonds, gold, because they all tend to react differently depending on what the economy is doing. So why is this so important? Well, according to Dalio's own research, a really well-diversified portfolio can slash your risk by as much as 80%. That's huge. It means smoothing out those wild market swings, protecting you from a total wipeout in any one area, and you can do it without really lowering your expected returns. It's about as close as you can get to a free lunch in the world of investing. All right, now to really get why diversification is so critical right now, Dalio says we have to zoom way out and look at history. He's identified this predictable pattern, which he calls the big cycle, that he thinks explains the rise and fall of entire empires. And it tells us exactly where we are in that cycle today. So this cycle has been repeating itself for centuries. It goes like this. After a major conflict, a new power emerges, sets the rules, and that leads to a time of peace and prosperity. But that prosperity eventually leads to massive debts and a lot of internal fighting. Then, a rival power rises to challenge the old guard, which leads to conflict, and ultimately, a new world order is born. The big question, of course, is where are we on that timeline right now? And this right here is a perfect picture of that challenge phase. For decades, the United States completely dominated global trade. But now you can see China has emerged as this massive economic competitor, and it's fundamentally shifting that global balance of power. And look, this isn't just a gut feeling on his part. Dalio's team is obsessed with data. They track dozens of these indicators to measure a country's health, everything from debt levels and education to the level of internal conflict, all to predict where a nation is headed. Now, to wrap things up, it's really important to see that Dalio's wisdom isn't just about money and markets. His core principles are really about how to succeed in any part of your life. And it's a pretty powerful way to look at things. His formula for success is actually beautiful in its simplicity. You have to go out and do things, and you are going to fail sometimes. It's inevitable. The key, he says, is to reflect on that painful failure, figure out the lesson hidden inside it, and then evolve. He has this mantra: pain plus reflection equals progress. I mean, just think about that. This is radical humility from one of the best investors on the planet. He knows he's wrong a lot of the time, so he actively goes out and finds the smartest people who disagree with him just to stress test his own ideas. That's how he avoids making catastrophic mistakes. So after all this, what's the point? For Dalio, money itself isn't the goal. It's just a tool. The real definition of success, the way he sees it, is having the freedom to design the life you truly want to live. And that kind of leaves us with one final question to think about for ourselves. In this world that's defined by debt, by conflict, and a changing global order, what does success actually mean to you? What is the freedom that you are working to achieve?